Hello, I'm going to be talking about Chris Williamson, who is was a politician. I think he'd probably regard himself still as a politician, who used to belong to the Labour Party and was thrown out. Now, here's a nice picture of Chris Williamson. And this is him on a good day, because it's an official photo, so obviously he's putting on his best face. He always reminds me, when I look at that face, I always get the sort of mental image of the sadistic camp commandant in a World War II movie. He has been in and out of the Labour Party. In 2019, when the Labour Party was being led by the incompetent Jeremy Corbyn, Williamson made some comments with regard to the anti-Semitic froth that was bubbling up in the Labour Party at the time. And they were very dismissive of what had become a very toxic situation. And he was suspended, and then he was desuspended. And then he said something as soon as he got back into the correct books, and he was suspended again. He actually took the Labour Party to court over this. Most politicians who are subject to unfair treatment from their party tend to lie low for a while and just make new connections probably, and if they have behaved badly, try to behave a bit better or a bit more politically correctly or whatever it is. And then after a while, when they've served their time in the outer darkness, they come back. Not Chris Williamson. He just goes straight to court. Well, he got a judgment that he shouldn't have been thrown out, and then a little bit later, another judgment that he should have been thrown out. And so in the 2019 election, he stood as an independent. Now, just to give you a measure of how fed up his constituents had become with him, he was a politician there. He was the representative, the Labour Party representative, and the people there knew him. He was on the television and the radio a lot. It wasn't like they hadn't heard of him, and they knew him as their local representative. And yet, when he stood for election as an independent, he lost his deposit. That means something in Britain. Now, there's no shame in losing if you're standing as an independent, because the way the electoral system is set up round here, independents have very few resources. They don't have so many volunteers to deliver leaflets, for instance. They don't have the party machine to get the political stuff in the papers and that sort of thing. So it's perfectly reasonable and no shame that Williamson lost as an independent. What is the shame is that he lost his deposit. When you put yourself up for election, you have to put in a deposit, some money. I think it's something like £200. It's not an awful lot, but it's there to stop really frivolous candidates. And when you've gone through the election, if you come out the other side with a certain proportion of votes, then you get your money back. If you lose your deposit, it means you've fallen down to such a low level, a handful, 100 or two. It means that nobody wanted to vote for you. You lose your deposit. And that is it's a real measure of how unpopular he was by that time. Now, he does definitely have sympathies for the Palestinian cause. In fact, he seems to have sympathies for very little else. If you look at his tweets, they're all covered in news about Palestine, Palestinian flags, his thoughts about Palestine, that sort of thing. He wouldn't have made a very good constituency MP with that sort of thing, but it's got to a level where you'd say that he can think of nothing else, and so much nothing else that he's even not paying attention to basic stuff. For instance, recently, Iraq passed a law saying that normalization of relations with Israel for any Iraqi citizen would attract the death penalty. I can understand how a country might think that another country is their mortal enemy. They have that right. And for instance, we're in a situation with Russia now. And let's say we're in Ukraine and Russia is busy bombing Ukraine. Does anyone consider that the Ukrainians should pass a law saying that anyone who suggests that Ukraine might make peace with Russia would attract the death penalty, would be subject to the death penalty? It's as bad as that. We know that Ukraine is in trouble with Russia, and we know that Russia is being very aggressive. However, if somebody in Ukraine says, well, I think we should make peace with them, I think we should try to forge some links or something like that, they're not going to get the death penalty. A lot of Ukrainians might be very annoyed with them, but nobody will arrest them. Yeah, if they're selling secrets, military secrets to Russia, there might be another problem, but I'm not even sure the death penalty there. But here in Iraq, it's not only illegal, but it is a capital offence. This is in the China Daily. It says, Baghdad, Iraqi lawmakers passed a bill on Thursday criminalising the normalisation of ties and any relations, including business ties, with Israel. And this is probably fairly important because, you see, there are Kurds in Iraq, and the Kurds are often very friendly with Israel and do trade with them. So this is probably going to impact the Kurds as an ethnic minority more than anything else, and will subject some of them to the death penalty. Whatever will happen, we will see a Kurd hanging, being executed by the Iraqi regime on this law, whether they made any ties with Israel or not, because the Iraqi regime would prefer to keep the Kurds a little bit suppressed, and this is a good way of doing it. Okay, so including business ties with Israel, the legislation said violation of the law is punishable by death sentence or life imprisonment. Right, that's in the China Daily, and it was passed by quite a majority. The law was approved with 275 lawmakers voting in favour of it in the 329-seat assembly. Now, the China Daily does these people the honour of calling them lawmakers. I want you to have a look at this video and you tell me whether you think these people are politicians and lawmakers or deserve that title, that description. Okay, here we go. I just want to point out that these people can't even agree on a president, on appointing a president. There is no unified government at all in that House of Representatives. They can't get their act together for running their country, but they can get there. This is a Reuters report on the same thing. And what do they say? And I was trying to get the figures on it. I thought it was in this Reuters report, but it's not there. So I'm not going to waste any more time looking for it. But that's it. So this is a group of people united simply by hatred and the ecstasy of hatred, rather. And they had just passed a law instituting the death penalty for any sort of peacemaking. And this is Chris Williamson's tweet. Members of Iraq's parliament have passed legislation that prohibits the normalisation of relations with the apartheid state of Israel. I look forward to the day that the British parliament follows Iraq's fine example. So this is what Chris Williamson thinks. He thinks that bunch are right, that the death penalty is a fine example, and that these people chanting and stamping in a house of politics is something that the British should emulate. God help us all if he ever gets back into any sort of power. All right, well, I am Grannyopteryx. I am to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. There's a bit of a problem with Minds at the moment. For some reason, my videos are blocked. I'm still trying to... Well, they don't understand it either. It's not like I've been blocked by Minds. But anyway, we're still trying to sort that out. Sorry about that. So... I am to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I let you know when I've uploaded a video on my Twitter, Gab and Parler accounts, where I am at Grannyopteryx. YouTube particularly is very bad on notifications for new videos. I think BitChute and Rumble are pretty good, but not YouTube. So if you subscribe to one of those, you'll get the announcements. All right, well, that's it. See you next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.